if you don't measure your goals to know where you're at, you don't know where you're at. As simple as that sounds, that's the truth. If you don't measure to see where you are, you don't know where you are. You don't know how close you are.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. We are Champion Circle, a professional association built and designed to help you succeed. Not only succeed, but to achieve your goals at accelerated rates, to build relationships that will allow you to expand your universe, to achieve more than you have achieved before through personal development, by studying the words of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and so much more. We are a community of achievers, and it's a place where we come to learn. And today you're joining us on one of our virtual training workshops where we train and share various purposes and lessons from this beautiful bad boy right here, this book, Think and Grow Rich. And we are in the 8th chapter, 8th principle, and 8th month of the year, speaking on the power of persistence. What a great topic we'll be covering. Our lineup for today is, first we will hear from myself. My name is Jon Kovach Jr. I'm the founder and CEO. I just tell people to call me the chairman of Champion Circle. I'm a global mastermind leader. We'll get into all that. Second up, we'll have Lauren Cobb, who is the executive team member. Same with Ian Sturmer, also an executive team member. And fourth, we will have William Blake, another executive team member, all here to teach, train, and educate, but to inspire you to take action. First up is myself. Hi, guys. My name is Jon Kovach Jr. I'm an international motivational speaker and a global mastermind leader. The global mastermind leader part is exactly what I want you to focus on, because I have dedicated my life to helping people through the mastermind methodologies taught in this book right here, Think and Grow Rich. I am inspired by his words. I know that if you apply even just one out of the 13 major principles in this book, you can transform your life and your results. One of the most important things that I cannot wait to share with you is that the power of persistence, which is the 8th step to riches, is one of the most profound steps in the process. In fact, Napoleon Hill said that persistence is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith, and it is the 8th step to riches. Today, I'm going to be speaking on a principle that is, riches do not respond to wishes. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever climbed a mountain? Have you ever climbed a mountain? Well, I've climbed over 50 mountains in my lifetime. And the only way to climb a mountain is the same way. One step at a time. You can't zip up to the top. You can't teleport. That's not possible just yet, we think. And also, you can't glide or fly. Humans can't do that. Yeah, there are technologies like helicopters and airplanes, but that's cheating. How do you climb a mountain? And the truth is, it's only one step at a time. Napoleon Hill said, without persistence, you will be defeated. Even before you start. With persistence, you will win. Persistence is that repetition, that one step at a time mentality. Because again, if you don't have a destination that you're going towards, you may not ever reach it. Riches don't respond to wishes. Riches respond to definite plans of action. And I'll be talking about creating your desire statement here shortly, which if anyone knows me and if you've heard our trainings before, I talk about that a lot, because writing down your goals and your desire statement is one of the most powerful yet simple ways to accelerate your results in life. In the words of Napoleon Hill, he shared that if you have ever experienced a nightmare, you will realize that the value of persistence, when you're just sitting there lying in bed, half awake, with a feeling that you're about to, be smothered or whatever, the whole nightmare thing, depending on what your nightmare is. But in that moment, you are unable to turn over or move a muscle. You realize that you must begin to regain control over your muscles through persistent effort uh, over willpower, you will finally manage to move the fingers of one hand. And then you continue to increase your movement. By continuing to move your fingers, you extend your control to the muscles of one arm until you can lift it. Then you again control of the other arm, you gain control of the other arm in the same manner. As you start to regain your control, you will finally see that you are able to get out of it. You can move your legs, and then with one supreme effort of willpower, you regain complete control over your muscular system. You snap out of the nightmare. The trick has been turned the trick has been turned step by step into an opportunity or a process for you to snap out of any nightmare, any dream. And everyone's a little bit different, but the general idea of it is that you can regain control, even when it's just a dream. But we go through that experience and we realize how easy or how hard it is to gain that control back when you are out of line, out of sync, or out of alignment with what happiness, desire, and goal and journey you're on. You might find it necessary to snap out of your own mental inertia through a simple procedure by moving slowly at first and then increasing your speed until you gain complete control over your will. You've got to be persistent, though, no matter how slowly you may be or feel at the beginning. Okay. With persistence will come success. But again, riches do not respond to wishes, they respond to definite plans of action. I used to run a race called the Grand Teton Relay. This is a 200-mile relay race split amongst teammates, and each of you takes shifts or a leg, and you run an amount of time, and then you pass the baton off to your teammate. And then while they're off running their distance, you rest, you lick your wounds, you get ready for your next race. And you split it up. You run around 2 or 3 different legs throughout the race. Well, this one year in particular, I noticed that part of my team started getting cranky, started getting negative. And also, we were licking some wounds ourselves. They were injured. Someone wasn't able to run when they said they would run. And it was just getting to the point where they were going to say, hey, we may not be able to finish the race, but what we can do is the race qualifiers will let us respawn at a new leg of the race so that we could continue the race, but we would have to wait a certain time period. Basically, we would be penalized, X amount of time, and we'd have to just sit there and wait. And I said, no, we're not going to sit there and wait. We're going to run every single leg of the race. If I have to run it, I will. Well, here I was, and you guys should know something about me. The most I had ever run in my entire life. I was a middle distance runner growing up in high school and in track and field through college. I ran the 400-meter dash, the 800-meter dash, and on occasion I'd run the mile. But that doesn't mean I trained for the mile or the 2 mile. So the most I had ever really run in my life was maybe 5 or 6 miles. That's it. I had never run more than that. But this Grand Teton Relay had legs, different shifts that you could run. One was 3 miles, one was 1.5 miles, all uphill. The other was 10 miles downhill, whatever. So I'm finishing up one of my legs, and it was 6 miles, an equivalent to the most I have ever run in my life in one go. And I get to the finish line, and no one's there. No one from my team is there to take the baton from me. So I thought about it for 2 seconds and I said, okay, I guess I'm running the next one. And the person at the transition point looked at me and said, what are you doing? And I said, my team's not here, so I'm just going to keep running. And she goes, are you crazy? And I never been asked that question and have a really great response. Someone asks you, are you crazy? What do you say to that? You could say, yeah, I am. So that's exactly what I did. She looked at me and said, are you crazy? And I said, yeah, I am. And she goes, The next run is 10 miles. And I said, oh, is that it? I smiled, I winked at her, and I said, we'll see you on the other side. All of a sudden, I hear her pick up the radio and she goes, we've got one that's attempting to run 2 legs in a row. Could we have medical at the next transition point? She did not believe me. My team wasn't there. No one was there. So I said, I'll just keep running. So I kept on running. And immediately I regretted it. I mean, every step was so painful. I started to cramp up. I was short on water supply, not enough protein on hand. But I remembered, that that persistence is something that you have to do one step at a time. You can't you can't have persistence and finish the race without finishing every step along the way. There's no way to climb a mountain without taking one step at a time. So I continue to run. And yes, it was painful. And I'll skip ahead on this story and just say 10 miles of grueling pain. The average mile pace was probably a 10-minute mile. I was probably averaging a 20-minute miles pace at this rate. And what that means is it took me a long time to finish. But to me, it was better to finish than to have to go and sit and wait and not finish the whole race. 200 miles was 200 miles. I signed up for that. So I get to the next transition point and my team is there, but no one's ready to run. No one's ready to go. I've now run 16 miles in one go. It's been a couple hours. I'm exhausted. And I was coming up to the transition point, and I made contact with my teammates, and I said, "Who's next?" And they said, "No one wants to run. We got so and so injured. The other person's cramping. Um, but we'll be ready at the next transition point." And I said, okay, I'll do it. So after 16 miles, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it again. And here's that lady again. She just pulls up in her car and she's got her radio and she goes, medical, he's still standing. We're good. And I looked at her and I said, guess I'm running again. And she goes, are you crazy? And I looked at her, I winked and I said, yes. And I just kept on running. We were crazy. Again, I had never run more than that in my entire life, but yet I was going to continue to run because to me, persistence is every step along the way. Even if I had to walk it, even if I had to crawl it, even if I was hitchhiking the entire time, I was not hitchhiking the other time, but I still had to achieve that goal. Speeding things up, I ran for my team, even when it seemed useless and unnecessary. But even when people thought I was crazy, I still went. I remember to quote the entire time I was running, and it was said by a rugby player a long time ago. So forgive me for not having the quote on hand, but the quote was, "Pain is temporary, but victory is forever." Pain is temporary, but victory is forever. You can take pain and replace it with any word of discomfort. Okay, stress is temporary. Anxiety is temporary. Anything that's uncomfortable is temporary, but victory, winning, is something you can always have. You can never get rid of that. No one can take that from you. So I kept running, that crazy man, all the way down to the next transition point. And my team was there waiting for me with water, a massage gun, everything I needed to just collapse on the pavement and pass the baton off to my team. Well, that instance led us to actually placing in the top 10 as a team, finishing the 200-mile race. And I was very proud of that. There was no way I was going to take penalties. And there was no way we weren't going to finish the right way. Finally, I wanted to share that, that when it comes to persistence and achieving any goal, the starting point of all achievements is desire. So let me ask you these questions, and I hope you write these down. And the answers to these questions are very important because every single day I write down my desire and I carry with me a piece of paper that expresses exactly what I'm doing. It gives me my vision, my direction, and my daily declarations. But let me ask you this. What is your desire statement? What is the exact amount of money that you desire? What do you intend to give to achieve this goal? By when will you have it? And what is your plan to attain it? I'll leave you with this. Remember, riches do not respond to wishes. They only respond to definite plans, backed by definite desires through constant persistence. Take advantage of the time you have now. Write down your goals. Write down the exact amount of money you desire or the exact accomplishment you want to achieve. Tell us or share to yourself or write down what it is that you intend to give to achieve that goal. And then by when will you achieve it? And then what is your detailed, organized plan to obtain that? And then you will realize that riches don't respond to wishes, but that you will have summoned the powers of nature and attraction to achieving that goal one step at a time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will next hear from Lauren Cobb, one of the executive team members here at Champion Circle, and she will be giving a talk, or she will be sharing about temporary defeat. And Lauren Cobb is a member of our executive team as well as a business owner, and has been working with her husband on their digital marketing business as well as their website design. And she's an incredible member of our Champion Circle community. Everybody give it up for Miss Lauren Cobb.
So Henry Ford says, failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. As I started my digital marketing journey and affiliate marketing, I was new to the game, but not new to social media. So I kind of had this confidence going in that, oh, I've got this. It's just about social media. A little did I know that I would be terrified. Terrified. Why was I so terrified? My face had been on social media for years. I was out there in the public networking, doing things that I love. And yeah, I was terrified to sit in front of the camera. And part of it became kind of hard for me to accept, because we all know that in order to figure out and overcome something, you have to dig down deep and find the why. Why was I terrified? And I knew the answer off the bat, but I didn't want to accept it. And it took me a long time to figure it out. I was scared of failure. I was scared of doing this and having everybody, my friends, family, and the whole world watching that I couldn't succeed. And it was a little different than building a business in person, because as you're building your in-person business and you're networking, you kind of grow this community around you. You grow the people that are there cheering you on. And the internet, we all know, is not that kind. I was terrified, and I procrastinated a lot. I just dabbled in it. I would film here and there and do what my mentor suggested, but I was terrified to really go out on a limb and put all my effort in. Little by little, I was able to gain the confidence and be able to overcome those fears. It didn't mean that I had success right off the bat, because it takes time. We all know that everything good is worth putting in the time. And overcoming those fears wasn't overnight. It was video by video and concept by concept. I got really good at the back end of things, of editing and coming up with ideas. I put all my focus into that. Yeah, I was terrified to go on and finish it, to go on and actually record it. I had my scripts written out. I would ask my mentor about ideas and what her thoughts were on the scripts, and it was all good feedback coming. And then it came the actual filming and recording. And that was tricky for me. I started doing it, and I would send out my recording to my mentors and say, can you give me critique? And they would suggest things, and I was scared to implement them. And it wasn't until, honestly, the last year, 6 months, where I finally was able to really bring those fears to surface and accept them and be able to build upon them. Because we can't let our fears drown us. A lot of people do, and that's a natural man. We want to just be like, oh, that's not comfortable, I'm done. You know, let's move on to something that I enjoy. Truth was, I enjoyed this, and it was a challenge that I wanted to succeed at. And so through the mastermind group that I'm a part of here at Champion Circle, I was able to bring my fears to them and have them help me dissect them and help me figure out how to move forward. I love that in Think and Grow Rich, it says, the majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. I want to be one of those people. I want to attain my goal. And thankfully, with the amazing people in my circle, I've slowly been able to get there. I can go faster. I sure can. But I have let myself hold myself back a little bit. And it's been so freeing to be open about my fears and being able to receive the coaching and feedback that I need to get over those, because you don't have to do it alone. We all know that. So what causes us to give up when we fail? Number one that I've seen in my life and seen in those people around me is that it's the fear of what people think of them. I mean, I could say it's the fear of recording. It's the fear of speaking correctly. I pronounce words wrong. Yeah, that's part of it, but it really was the fear of what people thought of me. I didn't want to see those comments. I didn't want to have to explain myself to anybody. And I was scared of that. And so finally, when I was able to open up about it, I was able to dig down and see, why was I scared of what people thought of me? You know, and I didn't want them to see me as a failure. I didn't want them to think I wasn't knowledgeable. I wasn't one that they could look up to. And truth is that everybody has these fears. And the more I dove deep into learning from those who have done it, those who are in other fields even, these fears are all the same for everybody. And so digging into how they overcame these fears and what they do each time they have that fear has helped me get to where I'm at. So if you don't succeed the first time, what makes you think you can succeed a second time? The answer to that for me is everything. We now have our do's and don'ts. We know if we need to change something, if we need to bring something new in on our team. We know what we can and can't do ourselves. And in Think and Grow Rich, we know that to get farther in life, you need to have your circle. You can't go alone. And it all has to do with your mindset, right? Starting a business with my husband was terrifying because I thought it was just he and I against the world. And when we first started our graphic design and website business, we thought that. It was like, okay, we want to do this, but it's us, and how do we get out there? And thankfully, I had people in my life who were like, that's not how we do it. Let's help guide you. And so you do not have to do it alone. And it's a mindset that you have to get over, because it is part ego and fear. So distinguishing between temporary defeat and permanent failure is crucial for success. Some say that defeat becomes failure when you don't get over it, or when you allow it to even stop you. Others say that there's no such thing as failure unless you accept it as such. So it's all in your mindset. Are you going to let this define you because you didn't make 2 sales this week, or even 1 sale? Are you going to let that stop you because it's like, well, it's not worth it. You know, I'm out. I didn't make any money this week. Are we going to let going after our, our dream job, our big dream, like we've learned about, our desires, are you going to let little things stop you because one thing went wrong, because one person said no? And while it's hard to not let that define you and let that consume you, you are bigger than that. You have the capability of becoming more. You are more than you think already. We all struggle with that natural man telling us, nope, you can't do this. Nope, it's not this time. It's just not in the cards for you. So you have to understand that failure is part of the success and part of the journey. And in order to become successful, you must keep trying. And trying entails both failing and succeeding. You celebrate those little wins so that it gives you the boost of confidence that you need. You celebrate the other people around you that are obtaining success, because that will help you in your mindset, but also they will be there to help you. As you get better at something, the ratio of failure to success will change into the favor of success as you learn what is necessary to succeed, and you're able to disregard all the negative and the unnecessary thoughts that come with it. If you look back on your past experiences, analyze them, learn from them. Life is full of trial and error. That is exactly what life is trial and error. And some of my greatest lessons are in those trials and the errors that I've had, but yet some of them have been the funnest because you just don't know what you're doing. And looking back, you're like, wow, that was a wild ride. I don't even know how I survived it, but look at what I learned. It kind of reminds me this summer, we've been out traveling with our family, and we were going down the Salt River in Arizona. It's in the Tonto National Forest out in Arizona by Phoenix. And there was a group of about 35 of us, adults and kids. The youngest were 5. I was sharing a tube with my 7-year-old, and we get on the river, and it's really peaceful, a little bit rough, but only after about 20 feet in, we hit some rapids that you really couldn't see coming. And they weren't huge rapids, but you definitely felt them. And in that moment, I was in the middle of the group getting on. And in that moment, my husband was in a tube behind me, and he had 2 kids attached to him. So the kids kind of started freaking out, and he was trying to help them. Lo and behold, he kind of got thrown out of his tube. And here we are in the rapids. Thankfully, he's wearing a life jacket. He's struggling to get on. People are trying to paddle over there to help him. And the kids, one of the kids, my nephew, started just crying hysterically. And he was terrified of what was to come. This was the start of the journey. He did not want to be on it. And meanwhile, I'm a little bit ahead. We hear everything going on behind us, but I can't really see it because we started moving at a quicker pace through the rapids. And my 7-year-old on my lap started really becoming scared. She was turning around and looking. I couldn't focus on what was behind me because I had to focus on what was in front of me. But she became really scared, crying, kicking her legs, turning around, trying to see and make sure her dad's okay. And finally, at the beginning, I kept saying kind of, just hold still. You're okay. Just hold still. Like, you're going to tip us if you don't hold still. And I was kind of firm. And finally, it was like, that's not calming to her at all. And so I had to take a moment to myself and I reached around and held onto her life jacket and held my other hand onto our tube. And I just kind of used my feet to direct us, but I had to be that calming voice for her through those rapids. And I wish I could say that it ended really quickly. My nephew screamed about the whole 2 hours and was in tears. He made it through, but he was in tears. My daughter, thankfully, it lasted about 40 minutes and 2 or 3 rapids, but we floated a total of like 3.5 hours, and it became peaceful. But what was amazing to me, and I'm still not quite sure how to fit this in, but I think it does. We came through the rapids, and this river is known for having wild horses live along it. They come down in the summer to the lower levels there, and we have tried for years to be able to see these wild horses. We've talked about them. Even last spring, we went out off-roading before the rivers were high and we're looking for them. We couldn't see them anywhere. And we came out of second or third set of rapids and we turn a corner and there's all these horses standing off in the distance, just peacefully in the water, drinking and eating the trees. And it was a little startling to me at first because you're on the water in a tube and there's these big horses standing there and you don't know exactly where the water's floating you to. I didn't have a paddle. I had my feet. And we come around and my daughter saw the horses and she just was awestruck. And it something so that was scary to me because I wasn't sure how to not run into them became so peaceful for her, seeing these majestic horses, and it was magical. And I just took a deep breath and I started kind of recording on my phone with her and and she just, wow, Mom, look, wow. And it just kind of set to me like, here we are, we all have those rapids in our lives. We got on that river thinking, oh, this is so cool and peaceful, you know, and then became totally out of our hands, like we felt just out of control with people falling off their tubes and screaming. And we just held on for the journey. I became calm to help calm her. While she cried, I just would curl her up in my arms, lean back in me, don't lean forward, and we'll get through this. And then we came around, and while I had to hold my fear in so I didn't scare her more, there was all these horses just standing in the river. And what was scary to me was calming to her. So it just kind of was a testament to me that we have to be sure of who we have on our team to help us succeed. Because had I started wigging out and scared with my fear of, oh crap, we're going to run into these horses, I don't want them to kick us, I don't want to startle it, it would have made her chaos even more. But her calming presence calmed me. It's like, she is calm and this is magical. Let me find the magic in it. And we all need those people in our life. I wasn't sure we were going to make it through that river trip without tipping over ourselves. She and I were able to finally work together as a team and realize, okay, she can't put her feet down in the water when mine are, because that puts too much weight in the front of us. You know, we had to figure out that balance on the tube and how to steer down this river. And it became a really cool experience. And I want to challenge all of us to find those people in our life that we can put on our tube and float the river with, because it is full of rapids and unexpected moments. And some things that aren't my strength are somebody else's, and they'll be able to help get me through that. And it's the same for you. This quote is said on our podcasts and our trainings a lot, but I love it. It says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so go and make a plan, and make your plan a plan that allows for failure so that you can find your pivoting points and be able to turn around and succeed and have those people in your life there to cheer you on. So thanks everybody, and go fail so you can succeed.
Thank you, Lauren, for that awesome message. Really, really appreciate the stories and the imagery, as well as the incredible experiences that you shared with everybody. Next up, we will have Mr. Ian Sturmer, who is also another member of our executive team and also has a professional background in both hospitality, insurance, and helping people succeed. He's an incredible professional, and he's somebody who has he has so many stories and experiences, and you'll really lock into his words as he shares a little bit of humor and a little bit of context. Here is Ian Sturmer with his speech titled Halfway to the Moon.
Thank you, John. So if I ask you who the first person to walk on the moon was, we kind of all know it was Neil Armstrong. But do you know who the first person to make it halfway to the moon was? Do you know the story of what it took to make it halfway to the moon? So I was curious, so I Googled that, and it's not there. Google doesn't even know who made it halfway to the moon first. No one cares who made it halfway to the moon. They care who made it to the moon. Matter of fact, all that came up was stories about Neil Armstrong when I Googled halfway to the moon. As we're looking to achieve our goals, They're a goal. It's an endpoint. It's something we want to get to. Now, yes, there's some advantage to making it halfway there. If your goal is to get $1 million and you get $500,000, I'm probably not going to complain with that. If my goal is to make it to the moon and I make it halfway there, I'm actually lost in the middle of space. And that's not really where I want to be, stuck in the middle of space. So when we look at our goals, we really need to focus on the end point of that goal, of where we want to get to. And if we're going to make it all the way there, it's going to take perseverance. It's going to take continuing to work on those goals. Going towards your goals is kind of like rowing a boat upstream. As long as you're rowing and working on it, you're moving forward. But as soon as you stop to take a rest, you start moving back down again, and you start losing that ground. So perseverance, easy to say it. And the people who always say you need to persevere are the ones who are not doing the goal themselves. They're just telling somebody else that. It just becomes a word we throw out. Oh, if you persevere, you'll get there because you're doing it instead of me. So that's always nice. But how do we actually persevere? And if you look through Think and Grow Rich, there's 13 steps to riches that he talks about. And all of those are critically important. But I want to focus on a couple of those steps because they're what lead us to be able to persevere so that we can achieve those goals, so that we can think and grow rich, because those are the 2 steps that it takes. And the first part of it really is thinking. And I want to just jump back to his first principle in Think and Grow Rich, which is desire. If you don't have a desire for something, there's no way you're going to work towards it and persevere towards it. You have to build up that desire. Now, something happens with desire. There's a word that we use a lot, which I believe is the easiest way to kill your desire for any goal, anything you're working towards. And that's something called willpower. Willpower is the killer of desire. Willpower is teaching yourself to do something that you don't like. Who's motivated to do things they don't like? Personally, I'm motivated to do things I do like. Instead of willpower, think about want power. Want power is the motivation to do things we want. Now, if I put that into a simple analogy of losing weight, willpower is saying, I am not going to eat that candy bar. And if you're like me, your motivation to not eat candy is really strong. No, my motivation to not eat candy is really weak. My motivation to give up and eat candy is very strong. But if I instead turn that to want power, I want to lose weight. That's my goal. And if I want to lose weight, one of those steps is choosing something other than candy. I'm instead focusing on what I want. It's easier to persevere, or maybe it's less perseverance necessary when you have that want, instead of trying to teach yourself to do things you don't want to. By focusing on the goal that you want in the end, in achieving that, the feeling you have with it, it requires less perseverance and willpower because you enjoy what you're doing more. You have that motivation to take those steps because you realize the importance of those. So once you have that desire, that first big step in it, you have to have faith. And faith is not the same as believing something. Faith is an action word. Faith is that leap of faith, that step of faith. It's being willing to do the things to achieve what you want. Once you have faith that cutting out candy will help you lose weight, it's easier to do that. If you don't really believe it, if you don't have faith to take those steps, you're never going to. And you're not going to see any of that achievement. I had that in my own life where I cut out sugared sodas from my life and cut down on some of the other sweets, and immediately, well, within a couple of months, lost a fair amount of weight. But it took that faith and action of doing it. I had to have a desire. And in my case, it was a health condition that made me realize I needed to lose some weight. I had that desire, then I had that faith that it was something possible to do. And it would take the action, that step of that faith, for that to begin to happen. Now, how do we keep those things in the top of our mind so that we can persevere, we can keep going? Because like I said, if you stop rowing towards your goals, you're just going to float back downstream again. And you're going to lose all of that momentum, that achievement that you've had. And I think we've all done that in our life. If we stopped on a goal, if you're trying to get in shape, you stop running and then you pick it up again 16 years later, you've lost a little bit of your ability to do things. So there's a story I heard a long time ago that was very impactful for me. There was a man who set a goal that he wanted to buy a sailboat. That was his dream. So he went through the sailboat magazines and he picked out his dream sailboat that he wanted. He took a picture of, or sorry, he cut out that picture, put it in his wallet. So then every time he opened his wallet to buy something, he would see that picture of a sailboat. And he would ask himself, do I want this new TV, this pair of shoes, this candy bar, or do I want the sailboat? And when he looked at that sailboat, that rekindled his desire, his faith in that he could do it. It gave him that stronger motivation to get over that temptation because he knew what he really wanted was that sailboat. The candy bar, the new pair of shoes, the TV, those were all nice distractions. They were fun. But if you put the two of them side by side and said, which one do I want? It was always the sailboat. And that gave him that strength because it was no longer a willpower to not do something bad. It was a want power to do something good. It was getting him closer to what he really wanted and keeping that first in his mind. So those first two steps in Think and Grow Rich of desire and faith are really the foundation for perseverance. If we don't have those things, there's no way we're going to put forth the effort to keep going, to achieve the goals that we have set for us. And we may quit in the middle and end up halfway to the moon or halfway up Mount Everest. Another great story, if you ever read about the first man to make it halfway up Mount Everest. No one's ever read that story. No one knows who he is. He didn't achieve his goal. So there's no story there. But once you have your desire and your faith, you've got to have a direction to move. You've got to know what you're going to do. And that's where the planning stage, organized planning. You have to measure what you're doing. You have to have you have to plan what you're going to do, have a goal set, have the steps in there and measure those goals. In his book, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes, he gives a story of a company he went into where the salespeople had a goal of making 100 phone calls a day. And when he interviewed them, they all said, yes, we're doing about 100 sales calls a day, 100 phone calls. Once he started actually having them measure it and write down how many calls they made, it turned out they averaged between 20 and 40 calls a day, even though they all believed they were making 100. If you don't measure your goals to know where you're at, you don't know where you're at. As simple as that sounds, that's the truth. If you don't measure to see where you are, you don't know where you are. You don't know how close you are. Think about Neil Armstrong going to the moon. If he didn't measure how close he was, how much fuel he needed, if he didn't constantly make corrections to go toward the moon, who knows where he would have ended up. But it was a very precise thing he had to do. We need to look at our goals the same way, as a very precise way of moving forward. Now, just like going to the moon, it takes constant recalibration with our goals, and our plans need to change and tweak them in order to move that direction. And that's part of that perseverance, is continually correcting and tweaking and moving forward. But as we do that, we need to be measuring the effort we're putting into it as well. I know lots of times I felt like I was working really hard at something until I turned around to look to see how far I'd actually gone, only to find out that I really hadn't done as much as I had thought. I didn't take the time to measure that, to see those steps, to make those milestones that I need to know that I'm moving forward, and to take time to celebrate those little milestones, those little steps that are getting us along the way. If our goal is to get $1 million this year, we need to celebrate when we make our first $1,000. or maybe our first $10 or our first $1 needs to be celebrated. Because those little motivations, those little milestones and celebrations are going to again increase our motivation and our perseverance. Without that, we're not going to move forward if you're not motivated. So finding those little steps to celebrate so that desire grows more and more. The closer we get to that goal, that desire should be getting bigger and stronger, so you can start to smell it and taste it and feel it inside you. When you have that motivation, you have that desire, you see that excitement, there's no such thing as perseverance because you're excited. You want to do that. It's no longer a willpower to want power. I want to achieve. I want to take that next step. I want to make that next phone call. I want to climb that next rung of the ladder, that next mountain to climb. It's a joy instead of a challenge. And the more we focus on how much we're achieving, how far we're getting, and celebrate those, and how much closer we're getting to what our main desire is, the greater our joy is going to grow in it, and the easier it's going to be to take these steps. So a friend of mine, I've been working with him in some solar sales and some training on that side. His motivation is always, my goal is one more. Once I achieve something, I can do one more, because he finds that joy in that achieving and taking that next step, whether it's a step along the path that you've planned out, or whether it's one more beyond what you've gone. You can find that joy in those things. So I want to just kind of wrap that up, that if perseverance is a challenge, if you find yourself stopping halfway, first of all, think of the first person to ever make it halfway to the moon, and think about the fame that he has achieved and the satisfaction he got from that, which is not there. Think about what you can, how you will feel as you achieve that final goal and the joy that you can get from that. And then that perseverance is no longer a challenge, but it's a joy to make it that far. So I'll wrap that up and turn the time back over to Jon. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian. That was awesome. And thank you for those applicable examples of persistence. We will finish up today's awesome training by inviting to the stage William Blake, who's also a member of our executive team over at Champion Circle. He is the dyslexic achievement coach. He has so much experience in media and helping people achieve goals. And also, he has the skill set of coaching, empowering people to overcome their obstacles and to find results within their lives. Welcome to the stage, Mr. William Blake.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jon. I want each of you to think of this question. Reflect on a time when you wanted to give up on a goal or a project. What inner resources did you tap into to keep going? And how did overcoming that challenge change your perception of your own capabilities and resilience? The first thing that pops up into my mind, 2 weeks ago, I get on an accountability call every morning. And this particular morning, I wanted to go out for a run. So after I got on the call, went out and started to do a run. And just like everyone else, did like the short run, walked a bit, little bit longer run, walked a little bit longer after that. And then I was planning on walking home. Right next to my house, there's an elementary school. It's my elementary school, and then there's a wrap around to my place. I told myself, I think I can do it. I think that if I start from where the stop sign starts, that I'd be able to get all the way over to my place. And so as I'm walking there, I open my phone, and for those who love Dragon Ball, Prince Vegeta, the Prince of all Saiyans, they have this Vegeta motivation thing where Vegeta's AI voice, I guess, is posted over a bunch of things, and it's like, keep going, you got this, put in the effort, you're a wimp if you don't do it, just keep pushing, become the power. Click that on. Wasn't expecting it to help me, but boy was I wrong. Because when I started at that stop sign and started to run, my legs were already tired. I was already done. I got to the end of the elementary school, which elementary schools aren't really that big. But once I got to the end, I felt like I was done. But that little voice in my head, which was the audio from the YouTube channel, was just saying, keep going, keep pushing. So I kept pushing. And then as I kept pushing, that voice started to diminish in importance as I kept telling myself, I can't do this. I'm so tired. There's no way I can do it. But then the flip of the switch happened. And when it did, I started to tell myself, Willie, you can do it. It's not that far. Keep going, keep pushing. And I kept pushing and kept running towards it. And I'd set little milestones. I'm like, just make it to the sidewalk. Just make it to the next road. And as I came around that corner and saw my place, it was like, go after that. Keep going. You can see it now. And about 100 meters before it, this voice in my head was just like, Willie, sprint for it. And so I sprinted as fast as I could. And I hit the grass exactly where I wanted to be, past that finish line, and just laid down. I was so done. But as I was catching my breath, I felt so capable that what I thought was impossible was something that I actually did. And in that question I asked, how did overcoming that challenge change my perception of my own capabilities and resilience? I now believe more that I can do more than I thought I could. And especially when it comes to, I got a keg, I got a little weight on me as I'm working on my health journey down. But I know that even though that was an issue in the past, I can push past the limitations that I have right now. And so on this topic of persistence, whenever we talk about setting goals, there's usually 5 places where we get stuck. The last one is persistence. I want to go over the other 4 just super quick so that we can focus on that last one. The first one is belief and mindset. So the problem is that we lack belief in oneself, and sometimes we have a negative mindset. This is like people doubting their abilities, like I did, and feeling overwhelmed by the challenge, which from running from the school to my place, that seemed impossible. And the solution was that self-talk. For me, that worked. That self-talk of keep going. And sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you got to plug in the Vegeta motivation. You got to plug in a third person in your mind to be able to push you past the limits that you had before. Things like affirmations can work. Things, adding supportive people in your life, as well as what Brian Tracy says all the time, write things down. Write down your strengths, write things that you're great at, and be able to review them every day. That helps with belief and mindset. The second thing is knowing exactly where you are and where you're going. My wife and I took a trip to New York a year or 2 ago. And when we were there, we were standing in the middle of Times Square. And I'm looking on my Google Maps, and I saw Central Park up here. We were right here. I said, okay, I want to go to Central Park. This is where I'm at. We started to walk. After walking for about 15 minutes, New York, it doesn't seem like a big place, but goodness gracious, you can walk forever and still be in Times Square. After 15 minutes, I looked at my phone. We had walked away from Central Park. So loving my wife and knowing she has an ankle, we called an Uber to actually get to Central Park. But if you don't know exactly where you are and exactly where you want to be in the direction you need to head, then it's going to be impossible for you to get there. And so this problem of it's the lack of clarity in your goals and your current position. And so to solutionize that, clearly define your goal and assess your current situation. And as you do that and create that detailed map and that blueprint, then you're able to take that and then fly with the next steps. The third thing is being able to make the finite plan, that blueprint. So before, when I said know where you are, where you're going, that's the direction you're heading. This is the blueprint and plan. So being able to make that concrete plan, that roadmap to be able to achieve your goal. Because a lot of us jump into action, just like I did in New York, without a structured plan. I thought I was right, but I didn't double down. I didn't double check. And because of that, I was just walking, wasting energy to a place that didn't help me, and actually away from the goal that I was aiming for. So the solution for this third one is to break the goal down into smaller, measurable steps. Start from the end goal, work backwards, create that step-by-step plan, and then you'll be able to go forward, getting those key milestones as you go along the way, and then reaching them step by step. The fourth one is taking action, daily action towards that goal, because a lot of us seem inconsistent with our action and inconsistent with the lack of progress that we're aiming for. Solution for this is to commit to just taking smaller, consistent actions every day. I know for myself, I'm on my health journey. And so walking 10,000 steps, that's like the bare minimum. Before that was the outstretched goal, but that's the bare minimum. Because as I walk, I'll get healthier. And that includes being able to then hydrate myself, to then work out more, to then being able to fall asleep at 10:30, which we're lucky if midnight or 1 a.m. hits around. And even I'm working on my spiritual side with just reading scriptures. I read a scripture a day because I've fallen out of that habit. A scripture a day seems, when I was a teenager, out of place. You got to have your family nights. You got to read a chapter of your scriptures. For me, building a habit, it's that consistent scripture every day that's getting me to where I want to go. So that's number 4, is taking that consistent action. So those are 4 of the places to where you got to believe in mindset, where you find the direction, where you create the plan, and then take the action. Those are 4 of the 5 places that people get stuck with their goals. The 5th one is what I call repeat and restart. This is where patience and the words keep going come into play. Because the problem is, a lot of us, like myself, lack patience. And a lot of other people, as well as myself, again, give up too soon on what's going on. We are expecting quick results, but because we're expecting quick results, we feel discouraged by our setbacks. And so the solution for this is to be able to embrace the process that we're working towards and to be patient with it. As well as when we hit a setback, to then realize that on our way to success, we double down. On our way to success, we're going to make mistakes, but those mistakes are the stepping stones that we need to take to be able to get to where we want to go. And so I want to share with you 4 different actionable steps that you can do to be able to help build that resilience within you and be able to persist as you're going towards your goals and as you're going towards the life that you are creating. The first one, set weekly time to reflect. We do this because this is the time that we take to be able to evaluate what's working and what's not. As we set a goal and as we're going towards it, I know that as we've been building social media and as I've been building my social media presence, if I've stuck with what I learned 5 years ago, there is no way that I would be growing as much as today unless every week I took time to be able to figure out what's going on and then adjust. So we can do this, choose a specific day, mine Sunday evenings, where when you set that weekly reflection time, choose a specific day, specific time each week to reflect on your progress. Use your journal, use your phone, use an electronic iPad, whatever works for you, whatever digital tool, to note your achievements, to note your challenges, as well as the lessons you've learned. Because as we write down and are able to see what's working and what's not, we're then able to accelerate us being the high performers that we're aiming for. The second thing, celebrate small wins. I know that this is one of my hardest challenges to go through because I want the big victories. I want to be able to be on a stage with thousands of hundreds of thousands of people. I want to be able to go out and hit 1 million followers on social media. Like all these big audacious goals that I have, I want all of it. But if I only focus on those, every single day, I get more and more saddened by it not already happening. And it jumps back to that lack of progress, the wanting to do more. So to be able to stay motivated and be able to recognize the progress that you've already made, identify those small milestones and reward yourself with each of them. This could be a small acknowledgement as like you high five yourself or you look in the mirror and high five the mirror. Not too hard because it will break if you do it too hard. It could also be going out for ice cream, spending 30 minutes playing a video game, doing something that you love, whatever it is, spending that smallest of times to reward yourself with small wins. Because as you stack the deck and as you build small wins, you again will be able to get the goal you're going for. The third thing, being able to adjust and adapt. We do this to be able to ensure that our plan that we've made, that blueprint, stays effective and realistic. Life changes, life happens. And so being able to be flexible with our approach is key. And especially if it's something that we have never done before. Sure, there are people out there who have the blueprints, who have the programs, absolutely. But this is our lives that we have. And it's our blueprints that we have to make. So as we're going down the path, if as we're reflecting on it, something's not working, we need to be able to be flexible with our approach and be able to remain effective in that way. And as we pivot in doing something, then we're able to again go towards our goals. If something isn't working, don't be afraid to tweak your plan. Some of the greatest advice that I've received from people are when I share my plan with my mentors and they give me that third-party feedback. So one last thing on this point of adjusting and adapting, seek out feedback from mentors, coaches. Tony Robbins said, coaches need coaches. And Tony Robbins, like #1, he's up there. If he needs a coach, then I certainly need a coach. And all of us need those mentors and peers to be able to help us with that feedback. Then last, the fourth thing, reaffirm your commitment to what you're aiming towards. We do this to stay focused and dedicated on our goal. And it's really this simple. Just revisit your initial motivation of why you chose it and remind yourself why you started. Like visualize the end goal and just see the benefits of achieving it. What's going to happen in your life? What great things are going to happen? And probably most important is, I heard this from, I believe, Alex Hormozy. If you're aiming to make $1 million in a year, once you get there, it's not about making the $1 million. It's about the person you become along that journey. So as you take those 4 and as you're going out to reach your goals, make sure you reaffirm your commitment and go out. Realize that progress might be slow, but persistence is the key. Each small step is, as you go forward, is just that much closer to victory. And as you celebrate the small wins and keep going, you realize that failing isn't the end. It's just the stepping stones to get to where you need to go. So I leave you with a challenge with those 4, which are set that weekly reflection time, celebrate those small wins, adjust and adapt, reaffirm your commitment. Out of those 4, I want you to pick one that you can do today so that you can take small actions to then get towards your goal. You are the writer and you are the hero in your life. So go out and write that story. And I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes. The master is the master because the master has failed more than the novice has tried. So continue to try, continue to fail, and you'll be surprised at where you're going to end up.
Give it up for William Blake. Super excited. And thank you for the lessons, the teachings, the inspiration, and the training that we've received today. I am grateful for the team here who continuously share inspiring messages, give me a depth of understanding and knowledge about each one of these principles. So tune in each month to Champion Circle on YouTube or wherever you want to collect your media, and you will find inspirational messages, great training, and opportunities to help you take action in your life. And we recommend that you join Champion Circle as a member. We have memberships and packages available for anybody at wherever you're at in life. But also, importantly, we have the option of helping you through accountability coaching, which will accelerate your results through the reporting and the consistent habit creating applications of following through on your goals, your weekly declarations, and the things that you most desire and want to achieve. That's what we're here for. at Champion Circle. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this month for another awesome virtual training by the Champion Circle leaders. Give it up for them, and we'll see you next time on Champion Circle.